Welcome Scorpio, it's your in-depth monthly forecast for May 2025. Your two ruling planets, Mars traditional and Pluto modern, are face to face as you begin this month. Mars, if you recall, returned to a very charismatic part of your chart on the 18th of April. The 10th house is where we can demonstrate our talents, but Mars is very much about authority in that area. The host Leo is about confidence and radiance. So what a great chance for you to demonstrate to people just what you're capable of. It's just that Pluto is in a very tender location, very much to do with home, emotional and family evolution. If you're renovating a property, it wouldn't be a surprise. You may have done that over the last couple of years. You may have moved home. There may have been an addition to your family. You may be providing support or care to relatives, because Pluto is about change. So having these two players broadly opposite does create a tension, because Mars is asking you to be very dashing, charismatic and dynamic, just at a time when Pluto may be making you more conscious of your vulnerabilities or need for security. But the Sun starts this month in your sector of relating. And relationships, such an important area of life. We don't necessarily have to be in a personal romantic tie. We have a relationship with ourselves, with our animals, our neighbours, relatives and friends. And those alliances are going to come very much into the astral spotlight on the back of the full moon of the 12th. But as you start this month, Venus, the relator, returns to a very practical location in Aries. She's not at her best here, but what Venus in the 6th house encourages us to do is to be thoughtful. So those little gestures that we carry out, making someone we live with, for example, a nice cup of tea, and just checking on how they are, can hold a lot of value. Professionally, if we offer to cover a shift, if someone wants some time off, it's going to be appreciated. So our love language can broadly be quite practical with Venus in that 6th house. But Venus merges with the dreamy and potentially inspirational energy of Neptune for the first time in our lifetimes in Aries through the first week. So if there is someone who's asking you to do something for them, it's important that you do maintain your boundaries, because it's good to be caring, but it's not good to be caring if it takes too much energy from us. We don't really genuinely have the time. So just be conscious of that. But if you are someone who loves animals, for example, if you do have a new addition come into your family right at the start of this month, it could be a very, very lovely experience, because Venus and Neptune heightens in a very delicate way the vibration of our connections. But the 6th house, very much to do with the aforementioned pets. However, the 6th house can also be about our work. If you are a creative, but you're a creative who wants to also produce tangible results, Venus and your traditional ruler Mars are going to be very influential for you this month. It starts to build up because Venus, as it edges forwards, links with your modern ruler. So you may find yourself being more conscious of some family relationships, because people's family structures can often be quite unique these days. It may be that someone close to you who's not necessarily a blood relative, you can just gain a greater appreciation of their thoughtfulness, their practical input into your life. But it equally could be someone like an aunt or uncle, which the 6th house represents. And the 4th house, because it's the home, could mean that you forge a relationship with a tradesperson, artisan, who does something for you that improves the physical comfort or the space that you're existing in. So that's a really nice thing. But Pluto does go retrograde on the 4th. It's an annual 5-month journey through to the 14th of October. And I think it's possible that you could be rejigging in some ways the practical environment of your home. Because although Venus is initially connecting to Pluto in such a positive way, later in the month when Saturn arrives in Aries for its first visit on the 25th of May since 1999, for just over 3 months and 7 days through to the end of August, it too is going to connect to Pluto. So if you were going to do some construction where you're living, or home improvements, or downsizing, or adapting in some kind of way, your timing could be absolutely spot on. Venus herself emerges from shadow on the 5th in that practical 6th house, but as she speeds up, is going to align to Mars right through to the end of the month. So where you have good relationships professionally, whether it's someone that you work directly with or whether it's the public, those relationships could be very uplifting with the link between Mars and Venus. Because Mars, unbridled in Leo, can be quite the attention seeker. I think what Venus does is brings a little bit more simpatico, sophistication and nuance into the dynamic. So if you're thrusting and aiming for some kind of breakthrough professionally, your ability to work closely with people in a very pragmatic and helpful way will really be very much appreciated. Because to be honest, Scorpio, your relationships come very sharply into focus from the 10th of this month. Because then Mercury plays catch up with the Sun in Taurus, but critically also Uranus. If you think back through those 5 months of 2018 from the middle of May and then from March 19, Uranus has been shaking things up around all sorts of relationships. It may have seen you want to have more personal space, create a bit of distance from people you no longer feel connected to. It may have seen the breakdown in a long-time relationship. But equally, you could have had some very, very exciting connections. They may not all have been particularly long-lasting, but they may have made your pulse race, because Uranus can be an electric energy and it also can be an exciting one, but it can also be a little unpredictable. But the full moon in your sign, which occurs on the 12th, is going to see the moon in your sign, where she is in full, opposite both the Sun but also the position of Uranus. But critically on the 10th, as Mercury joins up with the Sun, so she T-squares your two rulers. So remember I said, Mars is pushing you to raise your profile, be more self-assured, be more confident about pitching for what would really sate your ambitions, just at a time when Pluto may be exposing, because he is the revealer, exposing some sensitivities, sensibilities, and also some vulnerabilities. And because Mercury intercepts them on the axis of how you relate, and then straight after that, with that potentially intense energy of the Scorpio full moon, if there is something that needs to come into the open around either a home, emotional or professional relationship, it could do so in week 3 of this month. In fact, Uranus plays catch up and goes, Mercury plays catch up and goes alongside Uranus from the 23rd to the 26th. But it could also see that connection, and that connection doesn't have to be romantic. So you may encounter someone whose ideas may just really excite you. You may feel that they're very innovative, perhaps a little unpredictable, but that makes them all the more intriguing. And because Venus is linking so assuredly to your traditional ruler Mars, that can help you to stabilize into the sudden change or energy that lights up the heart of this month. But I have to be honest, that Scorpio full moon does suggest if you're not happy in a relationship, the chances are it might come to a close, but no one will ever leave our lives who's truly right for us. And what I would say, as the sun makes its way into the deep, passionate and transformational 8th house of your chart on the 20th, which is very redolent of the energy of your sign, it's not a direct match because, of course, the host is about communication. Gemini likes to talk things through, send text messages and emails. But the 8th house can be where you're thinking about what's not necessarily terribly obvious. So in a more spiritual way, that can be our psychological well-being, our interest in things like esoteric subjects. You may find your appetite for them absolutely explode through the last 10 days of this month. So if you are someone who wants some guidance, you could reach out for some kind of one-to-one with someone, and it may prove to be very valuable. But the 8th house can also be a much more practical influence. It can be about what we share financially. It can be about investments. It can also be about who we contract with, whether it's for our utilities, whether it's who we bank with, who we save with, who we invest with. And all of those things come under the astral microscope because stern Saturn moves into Aries on the 25th and brings a sharper vibe to your powers of analysis. Now, I'm not hiding the fact that that can often be one of your great gifts. You know, you can have a conversation with people, but in your mind there's a subtext of what you really feel they're saying. So your ability to tease out what people's true motivations is the stuff of astral law. However, because Mercury joins up with the Sun on the 26th, they're together on the Gemini new moon of the 27th and together exactly on the 30th in a Cazimi. And the last 10 days of this month also sees not just Saturn linked to Pluto or Saturn linked to the Sun, but also Neptune in a shimmering alliance with Pluto for the first time in our lifetimes too. So it's massive stuff as this month draws to a close. But that part of you that just understands life is a series of very deep commitments or investments of attention, energy and enthusiasm until you reach that point where you need to release and start the journey again. There could be some of that around some part of your situation towards the end of this month. It doesn't have to be a partner, it doesn't have to be your job. It could be an interest, it could be an attachment you have to a particular way of being. It could be a pattern that you have in your life, as much as it could be something that's more tangible. But that inner work that you can do towards the end of this month can provide an enormous amount of illumination, because the Sun is about that. It's about where we see the light. And because the 8th house can be where things are hidden, the revelations you get at the end of this month, or the brainwaves you enjoy, or perhaps the perceptions that you forge, can all be hugely valuable to you as the month draws to a close. It's been a pleasure being with you, Scorpio. Have a great May. Remember to check out my new website, please, at www.patrickarundell.com. You can get your free natal horoscope. It's absolutely brilliant. The big three, the ascendant, sun and the moon, but also you can find out exactly where your other planets are, the signs they're in, the houses they're in, and critically the relationships between them. You can also sign up for your free daily written horoscope. Please see below for more.